Hi, and welcome to the SmartMoveUCCS presentation. My name is Ray Fisco. I work in the Dean of Students office, and I'm joined by
Carly Sneven, and I'm the Graduate Assistant in the Dean of Students office.
We appreciate that you're watching this video for the SmartMoveUCCS presentation. We know that this topic is very important for us just because here at UCCS we really believe in making sure that we're looking out for ourselves and that we're looking out for our students. So we really believe that the messaging and the information that you all are receiving through the SmartMoveUCCS presentation is going to help with your experience while you're here at UCCS. This is the UCCS Creed. Hopefully you've heard of it at Convocation. It was developed by students and for students. And we just don't want to sit here and tell you what we think it means, what it means to be a part of the Mountain Lion community. We want to know what other students think it means to them to be part of this community. So, if we're here to talk about sexual assault, preventing gender violence, and forming healthy habits, how does this connect with the UCCS Creed? Ultimately, being a mountain lion means service and compassion towards others, being a leader in the community, and being a contributing member of our community. That's why this topic is so important for us, and that's why we're doing this presentation to all our students when it comes to our incoming freshmen this week and beyond. So today's training is all about being a mountain lion. It's about our community values and expectations, and really talking about what it means to be a mountain lion and what our community values.
So to provide some overview of what we're talking about in this training today, we're going to be talking about some policies and procedures to start that you're going to need to know while you're here on campus. Then we're going to talk about some other challenges you might face while you're here, specifically with alcohol and marijuana. Finally, we'll wrap up with a section about taking action. This is your college experience, and we want you to leave empowered to make the best decisions for you and for your fellow mountain lions. Before we go on, there's a couple of things to note. First of all, this stuff can be really hard to talk about for a lot of different reasons. If you need to, please pause the presentation and reach out to any number of the resources listed on the Dean of Students website. Also, if you want to look at the handout, or if you have the handout pulled up from the Dean of Students website, feel free to contact a number of those resources as well. One of them specifically is the Wellness Center. They are a confidential resource for you if you feel the need to reach out. Also, some of this may sound familiar from new student orientation, and we hope it does. But don't zone out and think, oh, I don't have to pay attention to this training, because we have a lot more in-depth information here that is important for you to know.
Alright, let's get started on creating a safe and healthy environment. And first, we want to focus on safety. So what is one way to stay safe on campus? One way to stay safe on campus is to have our UCCS Police's phone number on your phone. Their phone number is 719-255-3111. Again, our UCCS Police's phone number is 719-255-3111. If it isn't already on your phone, then please make sure to put it in there now. What's other ways that you all can stay safe on campus? One other way to stay safe on campus is late at night. We suggest always walking in groups. And another way to stay safe on campus is knowing where our emergency blue lights are located here on campus. There are several throughout campus. There's some in our parking garages. So if you ever need to reach out to our UCCS police, again, give them a call or reach out and go to one of these emergency blue lights. So it seems like you all know how to stay safe here on campus. So let's talk about other safety things here on campus.
There are a few other things that you should know while attending UCCS. One is that we have a new standard response protocol in each classroom. You may be familiar with it if you went to a Colorado high school, but we encourage you to take a minute to look at that information. Next, we have taken measures to keep you safe on campus. Each classroom door has the ability to be locked from the inside in case of emergencies. Next, Austin Bluffs is a really busy street. Make sure that you're using the crosswalks, and even if you have the right-of-way, that you're always checking for cars. Our police are not only cracking down on people running red lights near campus, but also on jaywalking. It's an $80 ticket, so make sure to use the crosswalk. Campus also has some dismount zones, so be on the lookout for those, and please get off your bike, skateboard, scooters, what have you. Finally, as we are wrapping up about safety, we not only want you to be safe on campus, but we also want you to think about your safety online by being aware of some email scams. We had some students lose up to $3,000 from an email scam that they received. This can come up as emails offering you a job that you did not apply for or threatening to send inappropriate video of you to family, friends, coworkers, or emails asking for your personal information or login information. UCCS will never ask for your login information via email. Be aware that banks will not typically reimburse you for any money that you may have lost because of an email scam. So a good rule of thumb to not get scammed is if it is too good to be true, then it probably is. And if it's so bizarre and outlandish, then it's someone trying to scam you. And if you're just unsure, send that email to the UCCS Police Department and they can investigate it.
So let's talk about creating a healthy environment. One of the hallmarks of creating a healthy environment is that it's free from discrimination and harassment. CU policy prohibits discrimination and harassment based on particular class statuses, which are listed on the right of this presentation. This applies to all students, faculty, staff, volunteers, and any affiliated entities. We are not going through the particular class statuses one by one because most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but when in doubt about a policy and who it applies to, just ask. And because these policies are so important, we're going to read the policies word for word. Discrimination is the unfair or unequal treatment of an individual or group based on certain characteristics, specifically the particular class statuses shown on this page that results in an adverse action such as getting a job, a raise, or into a specific program. Now, harassment is unwanted conduct that occurs with a purpose or effect of violating the dignity of an individual or creates an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment to the point that it unreasonably interferes with the individual's work or academic performance. It's really important to understand that in cases of discrimination and harassment, intent does not matter. We know that most people are not deliberately seeking to cause harm or distress. However, we can't get inside anybody's head to determine that. We can only look at the impact on the environment to determine if it was harassment. Did the person feel harassed? It is judged by a reasonable person's standard. Would what was said or done be offensive to a reasonable person? It is really important to recognize that behavior that is acceptable to you may not be acceptable to others. Now we want to talk about sexual harassment because sexual harassment is a specific form of discrimination and harassment, and it has three components. First, it's sexual in nature. It's unwanted or unwelcome. Consensual flirtations are not prohibited by the policy, but let's keep in mind it may not always be appropriate. Keep your environment in mind. And lastly, it's severe or pervasive. This means that something really bad, such as an assault, may only need to happen once to get someone into some serious trouble. But one dumb comment or joke isn't going to get you kicked out, but several might result in serious consequences. Finally, there's two types. There's quid pro quo and hostile environment. Who remember these from orientation? Quid pro quo is when a person in authority demands sexual favors from a subordinate as terms or condition of employment or educational benefit. And submitting to or rejecting such conduct is the basis for a decision resulting in tangible employment or educational action. It's not very common, but it does still happen. Generally, it's more of a subtle ask than a direct ask. What is a hostile environment? A hostile environment is unwelcome verbal or physical contact of sexual nature. So examples of that is uncomfortable touching, derogatory language, and offensive jokes.
Here are a few more things that you should know about sexual harassment. It can be verbal, nonverbal, or physical, so that includes comments, touching, and staring or leering. What we mean by leering is that when a person is constantly staring at the red triangle areas in the previous slide, which is awkward and uncomfortable. It can involve faculty, staff, students, and any other affiliated entities with the University of Colorado. It can be male, female, transgender, and gender nonconforming victims, and any combination of the like, same gender or opposite gender. Finally, the most important thing is your intent doesn't matter. Just like we talked about with broader discrimination and harassment, you can't claim it's an April Fool's joke. What you really need to know is that all of this is not funny, and while we try to bring a little humor to this presentation, it's really important that you're taking this very seriously and that the act itself is not a joke. And we do take it seriously, and this can get you into trouble. Another element that is also not funny and something that is very serious and important is to creating a safe and healthy environment is sexual assault prevention. Sexual assault is obviously a crime, but is also the most egregious form of sexual harassment, which is why it is covered in the policy we were just talking about. It is not only something that can get you into trouble legally, but with this school as well. UCCS policies prohibit all the behaviors listed on the right. Additionally, we have provided a handout with state statutes and other definitions that can be found on the Dean of Students website. Under federal legislation, colleges and universities are required to report domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. We are also required to have certain student discipline procedures for sexual harassment and sexual assault, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have to adopt certain institutional policies to address and prevent campus violence. And most importantly, we must educate students and employees on sexual violence, which is the main reason why we are here today. We offer online and in-person training programs about your protections on and off campus. We also host many events throughout the year that raise awareness about sexual misconduct, like Take Back the Night in April and the Red Flag campaign in October. This is a big concern for all college campuses and not just UCCS. We're going to talk more in depth about most of these policies, but I want to quickly highlight stalking. All stalking is prohibited, so just report it if you feel unsafe, and we'll sort out where it goes. Additionally, sexual exploitation can sometimes be a bit confusing. Sexual exploitation is taking sexual advantage of another person. This generally occurs when there is a power dynamic at play. One of the most common things that occurs with sexual exploitation is taking or sharing of photos or videos without permission.
Next, we want to talk about sexual assault. What exactly is sexual assault? Sexual assault is intentional sexual contact without consent. So we're going to provide you a couple examples. So let's say that you're standing in a crowded area, like a crowded elevator, and you accidentally brush up against somebody's butt. Is that sexual assault? No, it's not. It's sexual contact, but it was not intentional. This is important because with discrimination and harassment, we said that intent does not matter. But sexual assault is a physical act, so it's easier to judge intent. So let's look at another example. What about when students are playing basketball, one of them scores a basket, and then another pats them on the butt and yells, "Good shot." Is that sexual assault? No, this is not sexual assault. It's intentional and it's sexual contact, but given the context, it's probably consensual. However, if it's definitely unwanted, then it's sexual misconduct. And we never want to assume consent based on context or that it was probably consensual. So generally speaking, our students get the first two parts of sexual contact and the intentionality, but sometimes struggle with consent, like in our example in the previous slide where it can be a little murky. So we want to talk about that a little more, so hopefully you won't need our policies and procedures. Now we're going to show you a video that does a great job explaining consent with a bike. Even though this video was made for students at Western University, it is still relevant to us here at UCCS. So at this time, please watch this video and we'll continue with the presentation.
So that video provided a really great analogy about consent. We all know that when our potential partner says no, stop, or pushes us away, we do not move forward. But sometimes, for a lot of reasons we're going to talk about, it's not as clear-cut as that. As we are talking about consent, we want you to continue to recognize that this also applies to everyone, no matter the relationship or gender. This is important because, again, we want to move away from some of the stereotypical ways we think about assault. It can be male, female, transgender, or gender nonconforming victims, and it can also be with same gender or opposite gender relationships. Let's talk about some of the major points that were mentioned in this video. When you want to go on a bike ride with someone or engage in sexual activity with someone, then you need to ask that person if they want to go on a bike ride with you. If they say yes, then go on that bike ride, and if they say no, then it's time to backpedal and don't go on that bike ride. Consent must be clear, coherent, willing, and ongoing. You should always be asking and getting a yes from your partner. Understand that the absence of a yes is a no, meaning if someone is silent, passive, not actively resisting, but not really engaging with you, hesitant about continuing in what you are all doing, then this person is not giving their consent. A person who does not physically resist or verbally refuse sexual activity is not actively giving consent. Also, like it said in the video, even if someone is wearing bike shorts and a helmet, it doesn't mean that they want to go on a bike ride with you. Attire does not give consent. No one is ever looking for anything based on what they're wearing. We also recognize that people who are riding bikes are usually riding bikes with someone they know. There wasn't a person in this video that was going around throwing people on bikes or ambushing people in back alleys and forcing someone to ride bikes with them. Although these things do happen occasionally, the vast majority of sexual assaults, especially assaults that happen to college students, happen between acquaintances, classmates, or even within relationships and marriages. We don't say that to be scary or to say that the other thing can't happen, just simply to bring awareness to the issue for reporting purposes. Now we want to expand on the part that talked about alcohol and consent. First, intentionally using alcohol or other drugs to loosen someone up to have sex or pressuring someone into having sex is known as sexual coercion. It's not consent if someone is being manipulated, pressured, or threatened to say yes. While the video references sober consent, and that is best practice, law and policy actually say the person can't be incapacitated. Incapacitation is when someone becomes helpless or unaware that sexual activity is occurring. If someone is unaware of where they are, how they got there, and why or how they became engaged in sexual interaction, they are incapable of giving consent. With alcohol, this is a state beyond drunkenness or intoxication. And simply put, if someone is passed out due to drinking or simply sleeping, they cannot give consent. Last but not least, we understand that not everyone is ready to go on a bike ride or ready to have sex, and that's totally okay. It's okay to take your time and to jump on that bike when you're ready. So ultimately, whose responsibility is it to get consent? Ideally, both people should be getting consent, but ultimately, it's the person that wants to engage in the activity's responsibility to get consent. So if you are wanting to do something, it's your job to make sure that the other person does too.
Now we are providing you with a scenario to help us continue thinking about consent. So please follow along as I read through this scenario and think about, was consent upheld throughout this scenario? Sydney and Harper are dating. On several occasions, they are physically intimate, but within limits set by Sydney, who is opposed to having sex at this stage in their relationship. One night, when they are being intimate within their mutually agreed upon boundaries, Harper begins to cross them. Sydney expresses concern, but Harper is encouraging, saying, "It'll be okay, just this once." Sydney replies, "We shouldn't do this," but continues to touch Harper in an intimate way. As Harper initiates sex, Sydney says, "This is a bad idea," and begins to cry, but embraces Harper, and the two proceed to have sex. So, initial consent was followed by a lot of doubt and indications that Sydney was retracting consent. Sydney's submission to having sex with Harper was accompanied by hesitation and uncertainty. Sydney even made statements that indicated that they didn't want to keep on going when Sydney said, "We shouldn't do this, and this is a bad idea." Harper was not respecting Sydney's long-standing prior refusal to engaging in sex and had sex with Sydney anyways. This is a case where consent was not clear and not freely given. So now we want to change gears just a little bit and talk about what happens if someone reports a sexual assault to you. So with this section, we want to talk about start by believing. So when our friends are struggling with other things, such as a death of a loved one, breakup with a partner, failing a test, we often jump right in to offer our support. There is no shame in those things, and we don't blame them for bringing it on themselves. We want to make sure that we are creating the same support when somebody has potentially been sexually assaulted. So, what are some ways you can help a friend who has disclosed to you that they've been sexually assaulted? The first thing is to act as though you believe them. Even if you might have real reasons to question or believe if they're not telling you the truth, leave that up to the professionals to figure that out. Because if you are wrong and they are telling you the truth, that can really hurt your friend. Next, don't ask questions about the event. It might come off as accusing or can cause them to extra trauma by having them relive that event. Next, make sure they're safe, and if they feel unsafe, make sure to offer them to take them somewhere else where they might feel more safe. And lastly, make sure to encourage them to get medical help and encourage them to report it. And speaking of being a good friend, sometimes being a good friend is looking out for each other when it comes to relationships.
Unfortunately, college stress, along with a lot of other factors, can lead to an increased likelihood of abusive relationships during this time in your life. So we'd like to spend a few more minutes talking about unhealthy relationships in hopes that you'll be able to recognize the signs in order to prevent them. What is really important to know is that this type of behavior can occur in both opposite gender and same gender relationships, and victims can be men or women, and the perpetrator can be a woman as well as a man. It doesn't always follow stereotypical patterns. Another example is in LGBT relationships, one person may threaten to out another if they aren't open about their identity. That's just one way someone might try to exercise power and control over another. It might also be harder to report both men and those in the LGBT relationships due to social norms and fear of insensitivity. We never want students on campus to feel stigma in reporting concerns about yourself of others. If you are worried about someone, no matter gender or sexual orientation, please encourage them to report if they have been a victim of these behaviors. So we want to break down what the main types of abuse are in a relationship. They can include verbal, emotional, mental, physical, and sexual actions.
With all the different types of abuse in a relationship, we want to give you a couple more examples. When it comes to verbal abuse, this includes name-calling, spreading rumors, threats, yelling, intimidating tone, and somebody demeaning their partner. Emotional abuse is unfair expectations, controlling, withholding affection, isolating, infidelity, and blackmailing, especially in LGBT relationships where one person is still not open about their identity or sexuality. And physical abuse includes hitting, burning, sleep deprivation, punching walls, slapping and pinching. And lastly, sexual abuse is sexual assault, rape, coercion, unwanted attention, harassment, or generally not respecting their partner. So where's the best place you think it is for somebody to step up and tell their friend that they think they're in a abusive relationship? The best place is the signs of verbal abuse, which is typically the first sign of abuse. If abusive behavior is checked early on, it can prevent abuse from proceeding to the next stage. Abuse doesn't usually start with physical violence. It will start with manipulation and gaining emotional control over their partner before it moves on to physical or sexual abuse. So to be a good friend, let's look out for these signs. These signs can include when grades are dropping unexpectedly, if somebody is not going to class or work, or if somebody has very sudden changes in their interests, hobbies, beliefs, or values. And again, if you ever notice these signs with your friends, that you're reaching out and making sure that they're getting the resources that they need or reaching out to the appropriate resources here on campus.
So what happens when something does go wrong? UCCS encourages you to report any incidents of sexual misconduct either to the police, the Title IX coordinator, or both. If you are not comfortable reporting an incident, you can talk confidentially to the UCCS Wellness Center. They can also provide confidential services before, during, or after a report. UCCS can help with investigations, resolutions, protective measures, counseling, and support. You might also be wondering where all of this applies. These policies govern on-campus behavior occurring during any UCCS program or activity, or off-campus where the conduct could negatively impact the UCCS community. Federal law gives us very broad jurisdiction in terms of where we may investigate. Finally, some people worry about false reporting. It is a violation of the policies to knowingly file a false complaint or to provide false information during an investigation. However, filing a complaint or reporting something that turns out not to be a policy violation is not false reporting if you do it in good faith. This is a complicated matter, so if you ever feel like you are being treated unfairly, reach out and talk to someone. After something traumatic has happened, our first instinct is to get any reminders out of sight, but do not throw away any evidence, and here are some tips to keeping that. Text messages, IMs, emails, keep all of those. Screenshot any text messages and or social media posts. Keep a journal and write down your experiences, including the events that occurred and anyone you spoke to about those events. Additionally, if it is an assault, get medical treatment. Even if you decide not to pursue the matter criminally, you only have so much time to collect evidence and get treatment. This will preserve your options for later and take care of any of your healthcare needs. The UCCS Wellness Center will see any student for free who has been or believes they have been assaulted. A couple of tips in case of assault. Do not shower. Try not to urinate. Urinating may reduce the ability to detect date-rape drugs. If there was oral contact, do not smoke, eat, or brush your teeth. Do not change clothes, and if you've already changed your clothes, place them in a paper bag. Plastic may destroy the evidence. If you haven't changed, keep the original clothes on and bring an extra set to wear from the hospital. Go to a hospital with the capability of providing a sexual assault nurse's examination and request the exam. In Colorado Springs, that is Memorial, Maine. You do not need to file criminal charges or give your name to the police to have a SANE exam completed. This is to preserve your options for later and get you the healthcare treatment that you need. The SANE exam itself is free, but there are some other costs. If you're worried about that, the Wellness Center can provide advice or talk to your nurse during the exam. This is a lot to take in, but we have provided more detailed information on all of the procedures in your handouts. Please report if anything like this has happened to you. Tell someone and get some help. But remember, you do not have the right to choose who you tell. If you are not sure if you want to report it to the school or police, reach out to a confidential source and get the support you need. University employees, outside of those listed as confidential resources, are mandated reporters. So if you want to talk confidentially, use the confidential resources. Also, regardless of where it occurred and who is involved, if you are a student, you have access to our resources. For instance, UCCS Police can provide you with information on obtaining a restraining order through the El Paso County court system. UCCS will enforce existing restraining orders. Additionally, we can also put no contact orders in place, although they are not enforceable by outside agencies. We never want you to be afraid to report, so we have support and protective measures we can put into place. These range from free resources to housing and academic accommodations, to no contact orders and on-campus employment accommodations. Once a report has been received by the Office of Institutional Equity, a fair and equitable investigation will be conducted. Your handouts include more detailed information on your rights in the investigation process, and you can always find detailed information on the OIE website. The two most important things for you to know are: 1. All parties have rights throughout the report and investigation process. Having an advisor, reviewing evidence summaries, and being kept up to date on the investigation process are all part of your rights. Number 2, university findings are not held to the same level as police investigations. We only use the preponderance of evidence standards, which means, does the evidence indicate that what was reported most likely happened or most likely didn't happen? Because it's not criminal, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. Once a finding has been made, all parties will be notified of the finding and options to appeal. For students, any sanctions will be determined by the Dean of Students' office. Findings can include both formal and informal violations, and the sanctioning will depend on the severity level.
Retaliation is also covered by this policy and is not tolerated. We have a few examples listed up here. There must be a causal relationship between the investigation and the action. For instance, you report discrimination at work and then get a D on your test. That is not retaliation. There must be a connection between the two for it to be retaliation. And now we want to change gears again. We have been talking about one set of challenges that we hope you won't have to deal with, but that you might face as college students. And now we want to talk about other challenges you might face and how to handle them and making good choices while you're here. So for the rest of our session, we will be talking about alcohol, marijuana, risk reduction, and being a good bystander. Now let's talk about alcohol. The concept of a standard drink can help keep track of how much alcohol you are consuming. Essentially, a 12-ounce beer is the same as 5 ounces of wine, which is the same as 1.5 ounces of hard liquor. For each drink you have, your blood alcohol concentration rises by about 0.02%. This is higher for females and people weighing under 160 pounds. So avoid the unknown punch because you have no idea what's been put inside and how much alcohol content it is. Also, always pour your own drinks at a house party. And know that filling a solo cup halfway up with hard alcohol isn't just one drink. It's more like 3 to 4 standard drinks. Also, never accept drinks from someone that you don't know and that you don't trust. Other good advice about alcohol is the legal drinking age is 21. It is illegal to provide alcohol to anybody who is underage, and that we have zero tolerance here at UCCS. If you or your friends choose to drink, here are some important things for you to remember to keep safe. Keep your BAC at 0.05% or below. Eat before and while drinking, and alternate drinks with water. This will help you keep safe from drinking too much and avoid alcohol poisoning. If somebody reaches a point of alcohol poisoning, they'll have cold and clammy skin, they'll be unconscious, they'll be puking, and they might have shallow breathing. If you are with someone who is displaying these signs, do not be afraid to get that person help. Call the police, stay with them, and be cooperative with police or emergency responders when they arrive. Colorado and UCCS have the Good Samaritan law that protects you and the person you are calling for if you're seeking help for yourself or for someone else. Finally, know that not drinking is an option. Over half of our UCCS students here have chosen not to drink underage. So if that is your choice, know that you are not alone in that. And finally, you don't need alcohol to help meet new people, or to loosen up, or to connect with people. If you're at a party, just fill your solo cup with water and no one else will know. Or if you're at a bar, order a club soda with a lime. You have options.
We talked about the fact that marijuana is prohibited on campus during orientation, but we are going to say it again. The use of marijuana for recreational or medicinal reasons is strictly prohibited on campus. Here are a few more things that you need to know. It's illegal under the age of 21. It's also illegal to provide to anyone under the age of 21. It must be used in a private residence or property, not in public view. It's illegal to drive under the influence of marijuana, which could result in a DUI. Do not mix marijuana with alcohol, and be aware of high THC products. We also know there's a lot of misconceptions about risk factors associated with marijuana because of the fact that it has been used to treat symptoms from certain illnesses. When we are talking about marijuana, we are talking about risks associated with recreational use. However, just because it is available for recreational purposes, like with other prescription drugs, you should not self-medicate. The active chemicals in marijuana can overstimulate and negatively affect the parts of the brain responsible for memory, thinking, concentration, coordination, balance, reaction time, and sensory and time perception, all of which can negatively impact your academic performance. Additionally, marijuana use can decrease your quality of sleep and as a result, your quality of life. While many people feel it helps them sleep better, it actually interferes with your natural sleep cycles. Without quality sleep, you can experience memory impairment, unpleasant moods, immune system impairment, and many other physical deficits. Marijuana is an addictive substance, especially when heavy use starts at a younger age. Withdrawal symptoms for physical dependence show up differently with marijuana than other drugs. There is a longer time span before they are felt, which has led to the myth that it isn't addictive. We also want to make sure that you are not mixing alcohol and marijuana together. Using marijuana and alcohol at the same time can impair you more than using either one alone. And we also want you to be aware of products that have high percentages of THC. Products that have high levels of THC have a greater risk for negative outcomes with marijuana use, such as panic attacks, overintoxication, and addiction. A really good resource that you all can look into after this presentation is Good to Know Colorado. This website gives you a lot of relevant, unbiased information on being safe, being educated, and being responsible when it comes to marijuana use.
So in this section, we are going to be putting your knowledge into action to empower you to make the most of your college experience. If something bad happens, it's not your fault, but we do want to give you a few ideas to be proactive. So first, we want you to be aware. Keep an eye out for yourself and for others. Know where you are. Avoid isolated areas, and also avoid putting music headphones in both of your ears so that you can be more aware of your surroundings, especially if you're walking alone.
Our next piece of advice is to keep calm. Have a plan, keep your cell phone charged before going out, and make sure that you have cab money, just in case. Don't feel obligated to do anything you don't want to do. I don't want to is always a good enough reason. Know who you can call if you get into a bad situation. Have a code word with your friends or family so that if you don't feel comfortable, you can communicate your discomfort without the person knowing. It's okay to lie and make up a reason to leave if you are uncomfortable. You have your go-to escape plan and a plan B just in case.
Also, when you're going out, go with a group of friends. Arrive together, check in with each other throughout the evening, and leave together. Don't allow yourself to be isolated with someone you don't trust or someone you don't know. We also want to make sure that you don't leave your drink unattended while talking, dancing, using the restroom, or making a phone call. If you've left your drink alone, just get a new one. Also, watch out for your friends and vice versa. If a friend seems out of it or is way too intoxicated for the amount of alcohol that they've had or is acting out of character, get him or her to a safe place immediately.
Lastly, trust your instincts. If a situation or location feels unsafe or uncomfortable, it probably isn't the best place to be.
We talked about the info you need to make good choices for yourself in your time here at UCCS. We hope that you don't encounter any of these experiences from discrimination, harassment, assault, or a friend who drank too much. But we want you to have the tools to deal with those things. So there's this concept known as bystander intervention. When you're a bystander, that means something probably isn't happening directly to you, but you see it happening and are in a position to do something to prevent it. So, we want you to encourage you to stand up and not stand by. One of the big reasons people choose not to help is they are not exactly sure what to do, and we don't want that to happen to you. So we're going to talk about different ways that you can help. It's really important that when you see something going on, that you take action. There's a lot of different programs on being a good bystander, but one that we want you to remember here on campus is the 3 Ds of being a good bystander, which is direct, distract, and delegate. We want you to start thinking about how you might approach a situation based on your personality and the situation, but really your options are endless. So let's talk about the 3 Ds.
One option is to be direct. This means directly intervening in the moment to prevent a potential problem from happening. If you're talking to a friend who's about to do something that could get them into trouble, you could tell them, I think you're about to make a really bad decision and that you're really going to regret it, so you should stop what you're doing. And if you're confronting someone that you may not know that well, you can point out the threatening or inappropriate behavior in a safe and respectful manner by saying, is everything okay here?
For those that are not comfortable with being direct with someone, may just want to cause a distraction. Create a diversion to de-escalate the situation. So if you're talking with someone saying inappropriate things, you can change the subject. In a assault prevention scenario, you can kill the music, you can hit the lights, spill your drink, just something to cause a moment of pause in order to intervene.
Finally, if you're too wary or too shy to intervene directly or to cause a distraction, you also have the option to delegate. You can diffuse a situation by getting help from someone who is better equipped and more comfortable to handle the issue. With delegating, you have a lot of people you can ask for help. You can ask a friend, a party host, your RA, your peer leaders, any staff member, your boss, the Dean of Students office, or the UCCS police. What is important is that you ask someone for help. Remember, you are a part of our community and we take care of each other. Direct and delegate also work when you are worried about a friend. Earlier, we mentioned some concerning behaviors someone might be displaying, such as missing class or being withdrawn, or maybe you have noticed some concerning posts from them. You can be direct and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't been to class. Is everything okay? And you can always delegate to any of the resources that we have mentioned today, especially when you're worried about someone. We never want to put you in harm's way, but we do want you to do what is right. Thank you for watching this training today. And if you have any additional questions, please refer to your handout for the resources listed there. And as always, you can contact the Office of the Dean of Students. Let's have a great year and let's all make smart moves here at UCCS.